BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. There are 5 things that I hope that LSU does this week during the bye week. Maybe some of them are accomplishable. Maybe some of them are not accomplishable. But there are 5 things I got to see LSU or want to see LSU work on this week. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But number 1 is, guys, we have talked about this room a lot. And I'm not trying to continuously pile on them, but I'm just going to give you the facts as they stand at this exact moment in time with this team with LSU. Guys, safety play all around has been porous. We've talked about it ad nauseum, and I'm not going to go into great detail with you because you know what I'm already going to say. But it's not just safety play at times that's got to pick up a little bit. It's all around DB play. Guys, you're 96th in the country in passing yards allowed. Now, your question is, well, Blake, how do you fix it? Well, there are things that you're doing in the secondary that quite honestly just isn't working. The things that you have done, now there are some things that are working, but most of the things that you're doing, most of the havoc that you're creating, and most of the good plays that you're making are not coming from your secondary. They're coming from your front 7. Guys, think about it for just a moment. Now, there have been plays like Major Burns has had a PBU and Ashton Stamps broke up a pass in the end zone versus USC. But when you think of this secondary as a whole, name the plays or name the times that you've been like, oh, man, that was a great impact play. Well, there have been a couple. You know, I think of Deshaun Spears. I think of Jordan Gilbert. I think of Ashton Stamps. But you were 115th in the country last year in passing yards allowed. You're 96th right now. And let me tell you this. You play 2 teams that can't throw the football to really save their life. And if we're going to be honest, you play 3 that aren't good at it. South Alabama is a running team. They don't throw the ball around like that. You can say that they do, but you and I both know that they don't because they want to run the football with their quarterback that's a mobile guy and their freshman tailback. Nichols lined up with a guy named Guggenheimer who should have had probably was a war hero in World War II and is immortal now because of some magic potion. All Guggenheim did was literally get the ball from a wildcat and run it all over you. They didn't throw the football. They didn't throw the football. And then I think of UCLA, who quite honestly is hot garbage at what they're doing at throwing the football too. And you still found a way to be in a position where you're 96th in the country in passing yards allowed. Why is that? Because you're not living up to the potential that guys in that room have. The God's honest truth is, from a statistical analysis, the worst thing that you do statistically is give up yards through the air. Now, Miller Moss in that wide receiver room is really good. They're really good. Is Lenore Sellers the second best passer that you faced? Is he? Now, I'm not saying Lenore Sellers isn't a good quarterback or won't be a good quarterback or anything like that. But the God's honest truth is you have teams that their identity is running the football that you've played, that you've still given up big plays through the air, and that cannot continue to happen. So how do you fix it? You got to give different looks. You got to bait some teams. You know, like I think of Nussmeier's interception. Stay with me. Don't get pissed off. I think of Nussmeier's interception where they baited him, where they ran cover 2 and he got picked off in the first interception. Like that. Other than that, I mean, because you're just not playing up to the potential that you can have here. You know, this place has been garnished as DBU. We're not DBU. Right now, you're not DBU. You don't have a guy right now Well, let me back up. Because I don't want to throw Deshaun Spears out of that equation. There's a strong likelihood that you might not have a top 2 round guy in the NFL in either one of those rooms. Now, is that a product of of Jake Olson or Corey Raymond? No. Have you seen vast improvement outside of newcomers that have been here? No, you haven't. So they're going to have to figure out how, number one, to not get lost in man-to-man coverage, how not, as Brian Kelly alluded to earlier in the day, or earlier today in his press conference, how not to get lost in eye candy or emotions and being where you need to be. Guys, there are a lot of times we're not where we need to be on film. A lot of times. If guys can't pick it up, man, you gotta make changes. You have to make changes if guys mess up. How many times have we looked at guys like Kyron Lacy, Jaden Daniels, Garrett Dellinger, any guy on the interior of the offense or defensive line, and we've said to ourselves, hey, man, that's a really bad play. They need to be pulled, or we need to go get somebody that can fix it. Why aren't we doing that for safety play? Now, you're playing a lot of guys, but you can't just throw one guy out there in one series and expect him to be a baller shot caller, 20-inch blades on the Impala getting laid tonight. It's not how this works. Deshaun Spears needs reps. So it is what it is. Guys, you got to limit. I want them to focus in and lock in on eliminating explosive plays. Think about this. LSU is 53rd in the country in scoring defense. Now, I tell you all the time, and something that me and my good buddy Carter Bryant disagree on. He goes, he talked about, I think it was UCLA. Well, man, they moved the ball on you. That means nothing if they can't score. The simple fact that LSU goes from 119th in the country in scoring defense to 53rd through the first quarter of the season is quite simply amazing. But here's the thing, though. You've given up 13 touchdowns on the season. 8 of them have been on the ground. Of the 8 touchdowns that you have given up on the ground, 6 of them have come from plays 20 yards or greater. Lenore Sellers had 2 or had 1. Actually, Lenore Sellers, technically, I'm going to give him 2 because he broke 2 tackles and got in the end zone. I'm going to call that an quote-unquote explosive play. He had a 75-yard TD run. Raheem Sanders, Rocket Sanders, busted one to the outside and went for 66. Woody Marks had some explosive runs on you. So what does that mean? Guys, if you eliminate some of those explosive plays, what are your perceptions of the defense? Because you're 53rd in scoring defense at the current moment, and I humbly ask, if those plays are eliminated, especially from the running game, are you in a different place, in a different situation? How do you eliminate explosive plays? I know that Brian Kelly said that they went full pads today, and I'm sure they're hitting and they're really getting after it. I hope that this week defensively is all about assignments. All about assignments. Assignment and alignment. You don't like the coach speak. You don't like when people like myself come out here and talk about coach speak, but it's true. You can be in full pads and go through assignment and alignment and what you need to do. Guys, I will tell you the truth. I would go through 2 hours of walkthrough. And if a guy's not paying attention, kick him out and make him run. I've seen and heard stories of Saban when a guy wasn't paying attention. We've seen it on his documentaries. Guy not paying attention in practice, they start running. New guy comes in. He doesn't care. Well, he really doesn't care because he's got the depth that he could just roll another 5-star out there. But you get my point. Guys, eliminating explosive plays, your defense would be so much better than what it is. Turnover margin. Turnovers. I hope that there's a high intensity about scoring when you generate turnovers. Guys, You're in the top half of the country in turnovers. Did you know that? You're top. You know, I think of 22 when you won the SEC West. Think about all the great turnovers that you had from the secondary. Like Jay Ward had multiple picks. He won you the game against Mississippi State. He had one. I think, was it Arkansas that he had one too? So many times that he came away with great plays. Joe Fouché, the one-handed grab against Ole Miss. You know what you've done under Brian Kelly and what most teams do? You got to capitalize on them. I hope that there's an intensity of when you get the ball back, going and scoring. I'm going to let you in on a little something. I have heard from people that there has been an acknowledgement on the turnover discussion and going out there and really getting after it. Here's what I'd also say. This defense with Blake Baker wants to be very havoc or generate massive amounts of havoc. I think that they're going to try to scheme some things up to get Brayden Swinson moving next week that Ole Miss can't get past him. Guys, Ole Miss offensive line might be in trouble. We'll see him go up against a really good defensive line this week in South Carolina. Don't be surprised if you see some really different wrinkles against Ole Miss in a couple of weeks. They got 2 weeks to prepare for it. Remember that you boys said this on Tuesday in the bye week. Last thing. Guys, I'm starting to question if we have any dogs on this team. Now, you would say, well, Blake, what do you mean? I think you got highly talented players. Campbell, Jones, Nussmeier, Durham. You have really good players. I don't know if you have the toughness that it's going to take to get you where you need to go. Here's a hot take for you that I think is generated around college football. Now, here comes my soapbox, but I think it is playing itself out on the field. Guys, in the new era since 2020, in the NIL era, we have seen a constant decline of toughness. I am all for players getting paid. I am all for players doing what they need to do to generate enough wealth that they can take care of their families. The problem that has occurred, even in your own program, in that is that guys are not built the same. I don't want to hear that the generation below us is different. Human beings can be human beings. And when you put them in tough situations, in adversity, how they respond from it. I think the biggest thing and I don't know if you can change it midseason. Maybe you can. Brian Kelly would say that his team's tough. Well, no, let me tell you, man, I've been around a lot of football. You wouldn't throw your team in a bye week out there in full pads if you thought that they were tough. You wouldn't. I'm not telling you to go out there and be the Junction Boys with Bear Bryant and you're running in the Texas heat and sand and dirt and guys are breaking arms. And I'm not telling you to be the Junction Boys. But I don't know who the leaders on this team is. You know, I hear people say, well, it's Garrett Nussmeier and it's Will. You know, I hear the media trying to force who they think that the leader is. Guys, that's not reality. And it also confirms to me again, too, that you don't talk to anybody up there. Who is going to be the guy that steps up and gets in people's face and saying, you're doing it wrong, we got to do it right? Because coaches are not getting to players in some instances, and it's a lack of mental toughness. Guys, some of these guys that are still on your team have had multiple coaches. They've had multiple head coaches. They've had different coordinators. They've had different position coaches. They've had different strength staffs. They've had different player personnel. They've had different nutritionists. Everything has been changed over. The only common denominator is if you're going to look in the mirror at yourself and stop pussyfooting around and start making something of yourself and making sure that you're ready to go. I don't know if you have a lot of those guys on your team, and the guys that you do have on your team, I don't know if they're vocal enough. Like Jade, that was the biggest complaint that I had about Jaden to some extent, is there were times that I wish that he would go in that locker room and tell people to stop. You know that meme that or that video of people coming in here saying, it smells like bitch in here. Where's that guy?